Cheesebridge Conspiracy. Chapter 1 The Abduction of Cheesebridge. The scent of cheese hung thick in the air, heavy and pungent, as the news spread like wildfire through Cheesebridge. A baby, a sweet little girl named Amelia, had disappeared from her crib, stolen from her sleeping parents' arms. The whispers started with murmurs, quiet and fearful, then grew into panic catchouts. Boxtrolls, they cried, their faces pale and drawn with terror. The Boxtrolls, creatures of the earth, lived in the deep, dark tunnels beneath the village. Their legend was told in hushed tones, fueled by the flickering flames of the hearth. They were said to be monstrous, with rough hides, glowing eyes, and a pink hunt for the peculiar. They wore discarded cardboard boxes, hence their name, and were believed to drag unsuspecting villagers into the earth to feast on their toes.
Chapter 2 The Unkempt Prophet, Archibald Snatcher and the Case of the Missing Cheese. Archibald Snatcher, a man whose appearance screamed, lived in a damp basement with only a single flickering light bulb, shuffled into the lavish office of Lord Portly Ryan, the city's esteemed leader. Ryan, a man who bathed in the scent of expensive cologne and the respect of his citizens, was in the midst of meticulously inspecting a miniature replica of the city he ruled. He looked up, his expression becoming a masterpiece of strained politeness. "Ah, Snatcher," he declared, his voice laced with a hint of forced cheer. "What brings you to my humble abode this fine day?" Snatcher cleared his throat, producing a sound like a rusty gate opening. "Lord Ryan, I come with a matter of grave concern." Ryan sighed, placing the miniature city down. "Snatcher, I must apologize, but I have a rather full schedule today. Perhaps we could reschedule. It concerns the Boxtrolls, Lord Ryan," the cheese snatcher blurted, his voice higher than usual. Ryan's head swiveled, his face losing its forced cheer. Boxtrolls, the legendary creatures that lived in the city's depths, known for their peculiar habit of stealing anything that smelled faintly of cheese. A shiver ran down his spine. "The Boxtrolls? Yes, Lord Ryan. They've been active lately, stealing cheese from the market square, then disappearing into the sewers with their loot. It's only a matter of time before they target the city's entire cheese supply."
The Cheese Tasting Room Conspiracy, Snatcher's Ambition. The stench of fear hung heavy in the air, thick as the fog that rolled in from the sea. Snatcher, his face contorted in a sneer beneath his crooked metal jaw, addressed the assembled crowd. They were gathered in the market square, their eyes wide with apprehension, their voices hushed with dread. The Boxtrolls, Snatcher growled, his voice echoing off the cobblestone buildings. "To the vile, smelly creatures that lurk in the shadows, stealing your children, your cheese, your very peace of mind." A wave of murmurs replayed across the square. Snatcher, a self-proclaimed exterminator, had become the town's unlikely champion, feeding off their panic, exploiting their fear. "But fear no more," he shouted, holding up a hand, his greasy black coat billowing dramatically in the wind. "For Snatcher is here, and Snatcher is the answer." The crowd erupted in a cacophony of cheers and applause. Snatcher, releasing the adoration, was on a roll. "And what should my reward be, for ridding this city of the foul beasts?" He posed the question, his voice dripping with expectation. The answer came from Rind, the mare, a plump, round man whose face was permanently cut with a grimace. "You want a place in the city council, Snatcher?" A white hat, a symbol of respect, access to the cheese tasting room in City Hall. Rind's eyes, narrowed with suspicion, darted around the crowd. He held his breath, waiting for their reaction. A chorus of agreement echoed from the square. Snatcher's demands, seemingly outrageous, were met with unexpected enthusiasm. After all, the prospect of a future free from the Boxtrolls was exhilarating. "Very well," Rind said, his voice clipped, "but there's a catch. You must rid us of every single Boxtroll. No one can be left alive. Only then will your requests be granted."
Top 4 Good vs. Evil, Trout, Pickles, and the Boxtrolls. The Moonhorn Law, Casting and a Red Law on the coupled streets of Cheesebridge. Snatcher, a figure of menace in his scarlet coat, stalked through the shadows, his eyes gleaming with a predatory hunger. His search for the Boxtrolls, the enigmatic creatures who had stolen his precious cheese, was relentless. By his side, a motley crew of accomplices followed, M.R. Bristol, a hundshead figure with gnashing teeth, and the unlikely duo of M.R. Trout and M.R. Pickles, both perpetually locked in philosophical debate. The Boxtrolls are abominations, unnatural creatures. M.R. Trout declared, his voice sharp and accusatory. They must be eradicated. N.R. Pickles, A. Poor Lyman with A. enchant for Paisley, shook his head. But they are just trying to survive, trout. Like us, survival isn't about making a mess of our streets with their boxes. N.R. Trout exclaimed. They are a grip on our society. A menace. Film Boxtrolls. From monsters to musicians. Hvordan Earth presset against X-Back as he lay nestled in his box. The familiar rumble of the Boxtrolls subterranean city as a rocking lullaby. He was no longer the little baby who had jumped into this curious world of clattering metal and rhythmicals. He was X now, the name etched onto his box in bubbly, childish letters. A testament to the queer of fate had landed him here. Fish, a kin, lange Boxtroll with a heart as big as his overseas spectacles, was extravagant. He had discovered the abandoned box, from to its famed windows, and from that day on, he adopted X as his own. The Boxtrolls, far from the monstrous creatures the townsfolk feared, were a peaceful bunch. They lived a quiet, harmonious existence. Their lives revolving around their scavenging, tinkering, and the rhythmic clang of their metal boxes. Fish, with his peculiar talent for picking out melodies on discarded pipes and rusty gears, often found himself sounding X with these strange, beautiful sounds. He'd play simple tunes, a gentle hum accompanying the mournful whine of the wind through the tunnels, or a lively tickle that caused X to wiggle with glee in his box. X was a quick learner. He'd mimic Fish tapping on the metal, his tiny fingers clumsy but eager. Fish would laugh, his deep voice echoing through the tunnels, and then, patiently, he'd show him again, his gentle fingers doing X. It was a magic in their music, a language they shared through notes and rhythms.
Chapter 6 The Vanishing Boxtrolls. The subterranean tunnels hummed with the quiet rustle of jars and the clang of metal on stone. Eggs, his face lit by the faint glow of his salvaged flashlight, scrambled through the maze of pipes and the conduits. Ever night, he ventured further, braving the darkness and the ever-present danger of the snatcher to find the parts needed to repair their crumbling home. His people, the Boxtrolls, were fewer in number now. The snatcher's relentless hand had reduced their community to a shadow of its former self. The echoing silence in their underground lair was a constant reminder of their dwindling numbers. Eggs had been out managed, long enough for the fear of losing him to grip his Boxtroll family. His heart ached for the days when they lived without fear, when the only sound that filled their tunnels was the joyful clanging of their metal boxes. On a night, as Eggs was picking through the discarded scraps on the edge of town, he saw a flicker of movement out of the corner of his eye. He froze, his heart hammering in his chest. There, illuminated by a single street lamp, was a young girl, her golden braids bouncing as she rushed towards him. It was Winnie, portraying as daughter. She looked at him with a mixture of concern and curiosity, her blue eyes wide with wonder. Despite the apprehension that coiled in his gut, Eggs couldn't help but smile.
Chapter 7 Eggs and Snatcher, a friendship torn. In the tranquil depths of the coral reef, where sunlight danced upon iridescent scales, there lived two unlikely friends, Eggs the clownfish and Fish the butterflyfish. Their days were filled with playful frolics and shared secrets. However, this night, Egg's world was turned upside down. As the moon cast its pale glow upon the reef, Snatcher, the notorious reef shark, and his menacing minions emerged from the shadows. They swiftly descended upon Fish, their sharp teeth bared. Eggs watched in horror as Snatcher seized Fish in his powerful jaws. Panic surged through him as he realized the gravity of the situation. Eggs knew he had to act, but fear paralyzed him.
Chapter 8 Machine the Covert. There in the cramped hideout was kick with the smell of stale granola bars an unspoken far. Eggs, his normally bright blue eyes clouded with worry, stared at the grimy window, watching the shadows lengthen across the alleyway. For 3 days, had he been hunkering down, a prisoner of his own paranoia. It was the only way Ekner to protect himself, to protect them. But the weight of his guilt felt like a leaden weight in his chest. The riders had come in the night, swift and silent. Til det taken der frien, i surrogate, the only one truly trusted. A gaspe sepen him, the memory to read. I could still feel the cold metal of the riders weapon against his throat, the chilling rasp of his voice, the fire that had frozen him in place. Why do we hide? Eggs finally whispered, the question showing in the silence of the night. I wasn't addressing Anne in particular, but the words seemed to hang in there. It was something that he'd been asking himself since the attack, since the fire had settled into his bones.
Chapter 9 Trubcha's Lost Decade, Egg's Investigation. Eggs, his tiny, iridescent body shimmering in the sunlight filtering through the water, adjusted his makeshift hat. It was a discarded bottle cap, tilted at a jaunty angle, and provided just enough of a disguise. He was headed for the surface, a journey fraught with danger, but ultimately necessary. Fish, his best friend, had been snatched the day before by a colossal, monstrous creature he'd only heard whispers of. The creature was called Mr. Big, and Eggs knew, with a certainty that gnawed at his stomach, that Fish had been abducted and taken to Cheesebridge. This was the town nestled on the edge of the lake, inhabited by them, the beings with 2 legs, who looked like enormous, fleshy, clumsy fishes. Eggs had never been to Cheesebridge. He'd only seen it from afar, a bustling place with strange smells and loud clattering sounds. As he breached the surface, a wave of heat washed over Eggs. The air was thick, laced with a strange scent, sweet and cloying. He scanned the town square, his tiny eyes taking in the scene. People with wide eyes and strange, booming voices surrounded him. An enormous banner proclaimed, celebrating 10 years since the Trubshaw baby abduction.
Chapter 10 The Ballad of Eggs and Frou-Frou, a village tale of prejudice and acceptance. In the quaint village of Cheesebridge, where cobblestone streets whispered tales of the past, anticipation crackled in the air as the day of Madame Frou-Frou's performance drew near. For weeks, rumors had spread of the enigmatic box-troll contortionist, whose bizarre act promised to both tantalize and horrify. But not all villagers were captivated by the hype. Among the skeptics was Eggs, a young orphaned boy who lived with the unassuming box trolls beneath the streets. Nonsense, Eggs scoffed to his friends. She's just a freak show, trying to scare us into thinking we're. Despite Eggs' protests, the village was abuzz with excitement. The mayor, Lord Portly Rind, declared it a holiday, ordering the streets to be festooned with colorful banners and the town crier to spread the news far and wide. As the fateful day arrived, the village square transformed into a vibrant carnival. Merchants hawked trinkets and treats, jugglers tossed fiery batons, and acrobats twirled through the air. But all eyes were fixed on the grand stage where Madame Frou-Frou was to perform. Covered in a silken robe and a porcelain mask, Madame Frou-Frou emerged from a giant wooden box. She twisted her body into impossible shapes, her limbs contorting in ways that defied human anatomy. The crowd gasped and cheered, their faces a mix of fascination and revulsion. To Egg's dismay, however, the performance only reinforced the villagers' prejudiced views of box trolls. The contortionist's grotesque movements reminded them of the creature's lurching gait and misshapen bodies. Filled with disgust, Eggs turned away from the spectacle. As he made his way through the crowded streets, he heard whispers and laughter aimed at his people. Tears of frustration welled up in his eyes.
Chapter 11 Eggs and the Box Troll Rescue. As twilight descended upon Cheesebridge Manor, the applause faded into lingering whispers. Eggs, his heart pounding with a mixture of trepidation and anticipation, slipped away from the ballroom and made his way through the servants' quarters. In the dimly lit hallway, he found Winnie, her eyes wide with surprise. Eggs, she exclaimed, her voice hushed. What are you doing out here, Winnie? Eggs whispered, his voice urgent. Do you know where they take the box trolls? Winnie hesitated for a moment before answering. Yes, they're taken to an abandoned factory on the outskirts of town. It's Snatcher's hideout.
Chapter 12 The White Hat and the Leeches, a Snatcher Adventure. Eggs, the ever-curious and slightly mischievous cat, crept towards the shadowed entrance of Snatcher's lair, his whiskers twitching with anticipation. The air was thick with a strange aroma, something pungent and cheesy. He pushed open the door, his green eyes widening in disbelief. Inside, the scene was utter chaos. Snatcher, the notorious villain of the town, was sprawled on a plush chaise lounge, a dramatic frown etched on his face. He was surrounded by his henchmen, their eyes wide with a mixture of horror and amusement. A half-eaten block of cheese sat on a nearby table, alongside a haphazardly drawn map and dice. No, my brave adventurers, Snatcher declared, his voice booming. I, the valiant Captain Snatcher, will not yield to this vile fiend. I will wear the white hat with pride. Eggs blinked. Snatcher, the villain who terrorized the town with stolen sausages and chaotic pranks, was role-playing, and with a white hat. This was beyond bizarre. Ignoring the bizarre scene unfolding around him, Snatcher continued his dramatic monologue, gesturing with a half-eaten cheese knife. I will take this cheese, a delicacy from the local tasting room, and use its powers to vanquish the evil cheese goblin. His voice faltered. A red rash bloomed across his face, spreading quickly down his neck. He coughed, his face contorting in a grimace. By the beard of the cheese-making gods, I've been poisoned. Panic seized the room. The henchmen, some the perpetually grinning Mr. Gristle, began to squirm in their seats. He's allergic, whimpered one. He's always had a terrible reaction to blur cheese. Snatcher, however, remained oblivious. He continued to rant about his heroic exploits, his voice growing more strained. His body began to swell, his usual menacing figure becoming a bulbous, cartoonish monstrosity. My precious, cheese-infused powers. This curse, he shrieked, struggling to breathe. Gristle, however, remained unfazed. With a mischievous chuckle, he rummaged through his cloak and pulled out a jar of wriggling leeches. Looks like a job for the leech, my friends, he cackled. After a moment of hesitation, the other henchman began to apply the leeches to Snatcher's swollen limbs. The squirming, blood-sucking creatures, somehow, seemed to counter the cheese-induced allergic reaction. Slowly, Snatcher's body deflated, returning to its normal, albeit slightly uncomfortable, form.
Chapter 13 The Hidden Secrets of Snatcher's Domain. The metallic scent of the factory hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of their captivity. Eggs, a small, agile creature with feathers as bright as sunshine, squeezed through a narrow gap in the wall, his heart pounding like a drum. On the other side, Fish, a sleek, silver being with eyes as bright as polished gems, lay wrapped in a rusty cage. Eggs. Fish gasped, relief flooding his voice. You found me without a word, Ed said to her, his beak chipping away at the rusted bars of the cage. The clang of metal echoed through the deserted corridors, a symphony of hope for Fish. Finally, the last bar gave way, the kid falling to the floor with a clatter. Quick, this way. Ed jerked, leading Fish deeper into the factory's bowels, towards the hidden passage he discovered while searching for his friend. The passage was narrow and choked with dust, but they squeezed through, the darkness swallowing them whole. They emerged into a cavernous underground chamber, lit by flickering gas lamps. And there, before their eyes, stood the seal that sent ice down their spines. Their comrades, the rest of their flock and school, were working in an assembly line, meticulously constructing intricate machines under the watchful eyes of Snatcher and his gang. A collective gasp escaped them. They were alive, but their freedom was a distant, painful memory. The sight of their friends, working willingly for their captor, twisted a knife in Egg's heart.
X, his small farm bodily posing, he creamer coated once, posted forward, he stolen fish floating in his arms. He hard bodily escaped, he clutches hope, he bites Snatcher, he manic exterminator woven, he Boxtrolls for sport. More, all he wanted was to get back to his family. He split it through another opening, he gasped it. Beneath, he Snatcher's toilet, huge family king, Lauter, Stoltlos Blunt, Herr bis Amex Nube auf der Amphetaminiation. X, he wisted, Herr voice trembling. Where are you going? X, Eber T. Pragmatist, Ignorator. Don't follow me, he said, keeping his guards a big seat on the tunnel ahead. You'll get caught. Gut wenn nie, wollte die Asodensorge auf Kaveri, stepped forward. Im Not Arbeit anymore, he declared, Herr ganze Umwaffen. Im Not going to let him win. X here to date. He kniffed his Snatcher, relentless, Damaus. Gut wenn nie, wird wieder Eis and 40 berät, was so meeting Else and Irili. He tonight, his spear melting into eine Fundsense of purpose. Alright, he said, his voice surprisingly firm. Would you have to promise to be quiet, and follow me yet? When he did, her eyes pricked with purpose. Ty crept deeper into the tunnels, the fish rhythmic slapping the only sound in entire water. Ty passed a masse of narrow tunnels, a potential trap. Would X navigate with the cards of the Meone wo hardly waiting the shadows his and dear reliever. Finally, Ty realized a cavernous sparks, leave only beat the fine glow of bioluminescent fungi. It was here, in the heart of the Boxtrolls secret built, had Ty aim a bit.
Chapter 15 Monster Mash-up, Winnie, Eggs, and the Boxtrolls Revelations in the depths of Chesebridge, where cobblestones whispered echoes and the aroma of Stilton hung heavy in the air, resided an extraordinary tale that challenged the very fabric of myth and prejudice. Winnie Putleyrin, a young orphan girl with a mischievous twinkle in her eye, had long been fascinated by the enigmatic Boxtrolls. Legends depicted them as monstrous creatures with a voracious appetite for blood. But Winnie, ever curious and courageous, dared to believe what her vise. One fateful night, she stumbled upon an abandoned mansion where the Boxtrolls made their lair. To her astonishment, they were not the terrifying monstrosities of rumor, but harmless, if somewhat peculiar creatures. Disappointment surged through Winnie as her childhood fears dissolved. Among the Boxtrolls, she befriended Eggs, a sprightly young boy with an affinity for saving and a knack for witty remarks. However, her attempts to convince Eggs that he was not a Boxtroll fell on deaf ears. But you can't be a Boxtroll, Winnie protested. You have human parents, and you don't eat people. Eggs chuckled, his voice a symphony of gish and tin. Oh, Winnie, that's just a silly story made up by the fancy folk to scare us away. I am a Boxtroll, and proud of it. Desperation flickered in Winnie's eyes. But Fish confirmed it, she exclaimed. Fish, the elderly Boxtroll elder with a penkant for pilosopphissing, waddled towards them. AIE, lass, he sighed sagely, Eggs was left here as a vela. He be more human than Boxtroll, but he chose to embrace our voice.
Chapter 16 Boxtrolls and Telos Infantor. Beneath Tafling Metropolis, amidst Labyrinthine Severs, residet a peculiar community, Boxtrolls. The enigmatic binds, clad in repurposed cardboard boxes, laid an existence far removed from the superficiality of the upper world. They were a kind and resourceful society, possessing a wealth of knowledge passed down through generations. Amongst them, a particularly curious legend had been whispered for centuries. A legend of their ancestors friendship with a brilliant human inventor, the father of Eggs. It was said that the inventor al-Shabbat is genius with the Boxtrolls, counting them among their standing of mechanics that far surpassed that of animated human. In exchange, the Boxtrolls al-Shabbat their subterranean secrets, revealing the hidden parts and tunnels that wove their life near the city. Together, they had forget an unbreakable bond, their friendship unmarried with the prejudices that divided the human and troll realms. However, their idyllic existence was shattered on a fateful night when the malevolent nature descended upon the inventor's humble abode. A fierce scuffle ensued, the walls trembling as the two forces clashed. Amidst the chaos, the infant Eggs was torn from the inventor's desperate grasp. With heavy hearts, the Boxtrolls took Eggs into their car. As ordained by the legend, they had been entrusted with safeguarding the hilt of their former ally. Thus, they made a solemn vow to raise Eggs as owner of their oven, shielding him from the dangers that lurked both above and below the surface.
Chapter 17 Traits of Redemption. De Boxtrolls, nieuw perspectieven. In de labyrinthine subterranean world ben jas de bustling Straits of Gesenbridge, a clandestine meeting unfolded. Eggs, de resourceful handboy, had rallied his allies, the Boxtrolls, for a daring plan. Snatcher must be exposed, Eggs declared, his voice echoing through the cavernous tunnels. He has deceived the people of Gesenbridge with his lies about our kind. Winnie, the Boxtrolls' fearless leader, nodded in agreement. "Hele is a gala at City Hall tonight," she said. "It is an opportunity to confront Snatcher before the city's elite." Determined, the Boxtrolls set to work transforming Eggs into a proper young gentleman. With their nimble fingers, they repurposed cardboard boxes into a tire suit and fashioned a top hat from an old paint can. As they dressed Eggs, The Boxtrolls cricket jokes and sang silly songs, filling the air with laughter and camaraderie.
Chapter 18 Unmasking Madame Frou, the Castle of the Disguised Snatcher. In the bustling city of her neon lights illuminated the night, eggs, a renowned party animal known for his infectious laughter and eccentric wardrobe, was eagerly making his way to the grandest soiree of the season. As he strolled down the vibrant streets, his eyes sparkled with anticipation. Little bit eggs note had a peculiar twist in store for him. As he rounded a corner, a flamboyant figure in a billowing gown emerged from the shadows. "Mdrarest eggs!" exclaimed the woman, her voice a melodious purr. "Madame Frou at your service." Intrigued, eggs cautiously approached, but as he ran down his spine as he noticed something amiss. The woman's eyes seemed to gleam with an unnerving intensity, and her smile held a hint of mischief. "Would you care to join me for a drink, Miss Vet?" she whispered, her breath warm on his ear. Unbeknownst to eggs, his seductive temptress was none other than the infamous Snatcher, a cunning shifter who relished in deception. In a swift moment, Snatcher's true form emerged, revealing the sinister creature beneath the glamorous facade. Laughter erupted from eggs as he realized the ruse, but Snatcher's rage flared. A fierce battle ensued, the party guests watching in astonishment as eggs dodged Snatcher's lightning-fast attacks with surprising agility. Amidst the chaos, eggs seized an opportunity. With all his might, he sent a colossal hail of breaches hurtling towards the exit. The impact of the cheese shattering the doors was deafening, and as it crashed into the nearby lake, it disappeared beneath the waves.
Chapter 19 Winnie's Choice. Love and lies in Cheese Bridge, the air thronged with the high-pitched laughter of the town's elite. Their voices punctuated by the clinking of champagne glasses. Lord Grind, his face flushed with wine and self-satisfaction, stood on a makeshift stage, basking in the adulation. This was his annual charity ball, a glorious display of wealth and privilege, and eggs, disguised in a borrowed suit, felt like a fraud amidst the revelry. He'd come here tonight with a purpose. He had a chance, a small one perhaps, to change things, to expose the Snatcher, the boogeyman who terrified the town, for what he truly was. He knew the truth. The Snatcher was just a lonely, misunderstood man trying to protect his kind, the Boxtrolls. But convincing Lord Grind would be like trying to reason with the pig about the meaning of bacon he'd tried. He slipped into the gathering, pretending to be a new guest, and waited for his moment. He'd seen Lord Grind's eyes lighten in fear as he spoke about the terrible creatures that lurked in the sewers, feeding on the town's fear. X had seized his opportunity, his heart pounding in his chest. Lord Grind, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "You are wrong. You are being manipulated." Lord Grind's face had contorted, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. "What do you mean?" Boy, X had tried to explain, to tell him about the Snatcher's true nature, about the Boxtrolls and their peaceful existence, about the lies that were being spread. But as he spoke, the crowd had begun to murmur, faces turning towards him with disdain. "He's mad." Someone whispered, "He's just a troublemaker." Another chimed in, "Lord Grind, his pride wounded, had dismissed slamming shut behind him. He stood outside, the festive music muffled by the wall, a sense of defeat washing over him. He failed Willie, his dear friend who stood in there, unaware of the truth, oblivious to the danger she was in.
Chapter 20 The Day the Earth Shook, a Boxtroll Epic. The damp earth clung to Barnaby's ragged trousers as he scurried back to the Boxtrolls' hideout. The day had been a whirlwind of adventure, a daring rescue of a kidnapped fish finger, a near miss with Snatcher's wicked inventions, and a heartwarming reunion with his adopted family, the Boxtrolls. He'd come to appreciate the comforting scent of damp earth and oily gears, the reassuring hum of the Boxtrolls' metal clanking and the gentle, rhythmic clinking of their spoons on their dinner bowls. He entered the cavernous hideout, a labyrinth of rusty gears, scrap metal, and cobwebbed machinery. The Boxtrolls, their faces hidden behind their monstrous boxes, greeted him with a chorus of cheers and clumsy clunks. He was home. But the cheers died in their throats as a tremor shook the earth, the very floor vibrating beneath their feet. The air grew thick with dust, and a metallic screech ripped through the quiet. Barnaby's heart hammered into his chest, a frantic drumbeat against his ribs. A colossal machine, taller than any building in Cheesebridge, lurched into view. With gears grinding and steam billowing, it smashed through the stone entrance, leaving chaos and debris in its wake. The Boxtrolls scrambled, their cheerful clinking replaced by panicky shrieks. On the machine's platform, a figure stood triumphantly, his face twisted into a sneer of triumph. It was Snatcher.
Chapter 21 The Upside-Down Father, a Boxtrolls Rescue. Eggs stumbled into the cavernous basement, his heart pounding like a drum solo. It was the lair of the dreaded Snatcher, and the air hung heavy with the stench of fear and something vaguely metallic. A dozen Boxtrolls, his kind, lay huddled beneath a monstrous contraction of gears and chains, a looming shadow of death that cast a cold chill over everything. He saw them first, two figures slumped against the wall, their faces contorted in silent agony. One was a Boxtroll, his cardboard box dented and his eyes wide with terror. The other was a human, hanging upside down from the rusty hook, his face pale and drawn. "Daddy," X whispered, his voice trembling. The hanging man, his eyes bloodshot and wild, turned his head slowly, revealing a familiar face, a face etched with worry and hunger. "X," he rasped, his voice hoarse. You came." X rushed towards him, his heart swelling with relief and fear. "What happened? Where are we?" "Snatcher, he took me," his father explained, his voice weak. "He forced me to build this death trap," he said. A shadow fell over them, long and menacing. Snatcher stood at the entrance, a triumphant smirk plastered on his face. "Ah, Eggs, you found your way," he gestured to the giant machine above the Boxtrolls. "My masterpiece, you see. It will pulverize all the Boxtrolls, leaving only their discarded boxes, and the city will finally be rid of these vermin."
Chapter 22 X desperate stand in the sprawling metropolis of Neo Tokyo, amidst the towering skyscrapers and neon-drenched streets. Danger lurked beneath the surface. A group of intrepid youngsters, Kai, Maiko, and Sara, found themselves trapped in an abandoned warehouse, their hearts pounding with dread as they cautiously explored the dim-lit interior. Their flashlights illuminated rows upon rows of wooden crates. A faint humming sound filled the air, sending shivers down their spines. Suddenly, the crowd began to tremble. "What is happening?" cried Maiko. Fear etched across her face, a deafening roar reverberated through the warehouse as a colossal machine emerged from the shadows. Its metal jaws gnashed like the mandibles of an ancient beast, and its steely arms extended menacingly towards them with lightning speed. The machine lunged forward, its claws scraping across the concrete floor. Kai, Maiko, and Sara scrambled to their feet, their bodies trembling. "Run!" screamed Sara. Her voice hoarse and panicked, but it was too late. The machine clamped down upon the grates, crushing them to smithereens. Michael's screams were cut short as her box was pulverized into 1,000 pieces. I watched in horror as his friends were extinguished before his very eyes. Suddenly, the voice pierced through the deafening noise. "Don, give up," shouted Eggs, the young boy who had been hiding behind one of the grates. "Stand up and fight."
City Albany. Amidst the whistling cobblestone street, Snatches sinistre plan unfolded. Disguising Egg à Boxtrolls avec une ugly crofted mask, au piloté Ironsac la contraption through the labyrinthine Tower City Hall. Port Lyrin, the corpulent lord, emerged reluctantly as Snatches fleeing machines crichet to halt in the courtyard. With a menacing grin, Snatches declared triumphantly, "Non lui avis de cimates au Boxtrolls Lord, but no demande your prise possession, Port Lyrin. You resplendita." A chorus of gas triplet through the assemblée townsfolk. Port Lyrin recoilait in disbelief, ich flusait à deep shadow of crimson. You insolent urchin, au Belloway. Never. Away, the townsfolk plus fear à relâcher à fauve pitch. Fear and desperation n'avaient atterrir at the witnesses the carnage snatché à rogue ponter sworn on me, the Boxtrolls. Leave him the implorait. Or the town will be next.
Chapter 24 The Council's Betrayal, A Snatcher's Choice. Portlyrin Smokehead his already smooth, police head bald head, trying to act their nonchalant. Had never been good at pretending, especially not when the walls of the council chamber were literally shaking with the roar of the newly installed, gargantuan machine. It hummed with an unholy power, a metallic beast built to devour the town's refuse and sped for something else. Something very much like a council member. A most unusual addition to the city council, Portlyrin announced, forcing a smile that felt like grimacing. Snatcher, his pale face contorted in a perpetual sneer, took his place at the lone police head mahogany table, his obsidian eyes gleaming in the dim light. He didn't even bother to hide the sinister gleam of his claw-like fingers. As you all know, Portlyrin continued, his voice cracking a little under the pressure, Snatcher has shown great dedication to the city. He's passionate about eliminating its problems, and we must give him every opportunity to express his unique perspective. He paused, glancing at the furnace where Snatcher's henchmen were lowering the disguised EG as the Boxtrolls who had bravely infiltrated the town, including the one called EG as whose father had been taken. Portlyrin's heart sank momentarily. Snatcher had promised to spare EG as a token of good faith, a token he knew that would be consumed by the machine if he was being honest to himself. Now, gentlemen, Portlyrin cleared his throat again, trying to regain his composure. It's time for the first demonstration of our new council members' expertise. The machine said, then sputtered with a terrifying mechanical code. The furnace glowed a hungry orange, and the first of the EGs was lowered in, its metal shell glinting. It was then that chaos erupted. A second, identical machine, even larger and more menacing, materialized outside, right in front of the council chamber. It rumbled and groaned, a mechanical leviathan with claws like giant metal pincers. But what made it utterly terrifying was the sight of the Boxtrolls who stood defiantly at its controls. And there, in the middle of them, perched on a heap of scrap metal, was EG's father, his face a mixture of fury and relief. Next to him, clutching his father's hand, was EG's himself, his eyes blazing with righteous anger. They had managed to escape. They had outsmarted the Crushers, the traps, the very machines designated to subdue them. They had escaped, and they were back.
Chapter 25 The White Hat's Curse, Snatcher's Furious Assault. In the subterranean labyrinth beneath Chesa Bridge, a storm of revelation and revolt erupted. Archibald Snatcher's sinister machinations had been exposed. Eggs, the abandoned orphan, had escaped his clutches and revealed the truth to the Boxtrolls. The lies and cruelty that Snatcher had perpetuated lay shattered in the open. Portly Rind, the formidable leader of the Boxtrolls, stood his ground. Enough is enough, Snatcher, he boomed. We will not surrender our white hat. Rage consumed Snatcher. He leapt back onto his monstrous machine and roared, "You shall regret that, Rind." The machine lurched forward, its grasping claws extended. Boxtrolls scattered as Snatcher's reign of terror resumed, but amidst the chaos, a spark of defiance ignited.
Chapter 26 The Boxtrolls and the Briefful Disaster, a tale of cheese, chaos, and cranky councilmen. In the labyrinthine depths of Cheesebridge, a chaotic game of keep away unfolded, with the Boxtrolls and their relentless adversaries, the Snatcher and his councilmen, locked in a frantic tug-of-war. The stakes were high. The Boxtrolls sought to dismantle the menacing cheese-collecting machine that threatened their underground world, while the councilmen desperately clung to their precious prize, a massive wheel of brie. The chase raged through the city's winding tunnels, the Boxtrolls nimbly dodging the councilmen's clumsy attempts to seize the machine. Finally, at a crumbling intersection, Snatcher's greed got the better of him. Spotting the wheel of brie dangling over the edge of the river, he lunged towards it with reckless abandon. As Snatcher toppled headfirst into the river, the wheel of brie was violently dislodged. With a mighty crash, the machine pitched over, its metal gears grinding to a halt. The Boxtrolls erupted in triumph as they watched the councilmen scramble to retrieve their prize. But fate had a comical twist in store. As Snatcher emerged from the river, drenched in cheese water, a wave of panic washed over him. His eyes puffed up, his nose swelled, and he began to sneeze uncontrollably. Unknown to him, he had a severe allergy to brie.
Chapter 27 はWinnie and the White Hat Hostage. The Air Cracked with the tension of a thousand hosts. The annual Buttercup Festival, usually a joyous affair, had descended into chaos. A rogue pie eating contest, fueled by fermented berry wine, had turned into a full-blown brawl. Barnaby, a baker with a penchant for the dramatic, was at the center of the storm, an unfortunate bystander who had somehow become the target of the drunken fury. He dodged a Harald cream pie with a well-timed duck, landing squarely on top of a table laden with pastries. His eyes met beneath the little girl with the pristine white hat. Her usual bright smile now replaced with wide-eyed terror. An idea spoke to in Barnaby's panicked mind. Now was the time to act, to make his escape from this scenario carnage. He grabbed Winnie, her hat tilting low over her eyes, and hoisted her onto his shoulder. Everyone, halt, he roared, his voice surprisingly loud and powerful. We are going to that signal.
Chapter 28 Winnie's Bite, a tale of escape and resistance. In the dimly lit air, a seismic shift was brewing. Port Lear, his corpulent form wobbling, presented Snatcher with a culinary treasure, a pungent, crystalline cheese, its aroma tantalizingly haunting the air. Winnie, the diminutive imp with a razor-sharp wit, watched from the shadows, her eyes gleaming with a plan glinting within them. As Snatcher, his maw gave in anticipation, reached for the fabled delicacy, Winnie made her move. With lightning speed, she lunged at Port Learine's rotund belly, her teeth sinking deep into his spongy flesh. A piercing wail echoed through the chamber as the cheese slipped from Port Learine's grasp. Snatcher's attention turned to the morsel, poised to take a bite when a voice interrupted his gastronomic reverie. "Reconsider, Snatcher," Eggs cautioned, his eyes twinkling with an enigmatic wisdom. "True prestige does not lie in the delicacies you consume or the elevated status you possess." Snatcher scoffed, his face contorting into a grimace. "Destiny, Eggs, destiny. This cheese is not merely nourishment. It is my birthright." Chapter 29 From Cheddar to Chaos, a guide to cheese allergies. Bartholomew Bart Bramble, a man whose love for cheese knew no bounds, was the undisputed champion of the local cheese competition. His triple-weight wonder had won the coveted Golden Gouda for 5 years running, and Bart was riding high on the wave of his victory. Tonight, however, was his special occasion. The Grand Cheese Extravaganza, a nationwide competition, was being held in the city. Bart's triple-weight wonder was vying for the ultimate cheddar, the highest cheese honor in the land. With a nervous flutter in his stomach, Bart presented his creation to the judges. The aroma alone was intoxicating, and the judges couldn't wait to sample. They took a bite, their faces lighting up with delight. "This is truly exceptional," one judge declared, wiping a smear of cheese from his cheek. Bart beamed. He was about to win, he could feel it. He, the cheese maestro, the king of all things creamy and aged, was going to take home the prize. Suddenly, a gasp. The judges stared at Bart, their faces a mixture of horror and disbelief. A faint, almost imperceptible, tremor shook the room. It was then the unthinkable happened. Bart, standing a foot away from the judges, let out a scream that echoed through the hall. He doubled over, his body contorting in an agonizing spasm. His skin turned a sickly shade of purple, his eyes bulged, and a monstrous, cheese-scented gust of wind erupted from him. With a deafening boom, Bart exploded.
Chapter 30 The Bonds of Society, Beyond Appearances. In the quaint and unassuming town of Cheesebridge, a transformative awakening had taken place. The once shunned and ridiculed Boxtrolls had now found sanctuary within the hearts and homes of the human population. Their aid proved invaluable in myriad ways. With their keen sense of smell and meticulous searching skills, the Boxtrolls became renowned as master scavengers. The townsfolk discovered an unexpected bounty of forgotten treasures, lost trinkets, misplaced coins, and even long-lost family heirlooms. The Boxtrolls' uncanny ability to recycle and repurpose waste materials also left an indelible mark on Cheesebridge. Ingenious contraptions crafted from discarded items filled the streets, bringing a touch of whimsy and functionality to everyday life. Eggs, the young orphaned boy who had once been an outcast, now found solace and guidance in his reunited father. Together, they embarked on a continuous journey of acclimation into human society. With patience and empathy, Eggs's father taught him the customs and traditions of the town, bridging the gap between their once separate worlds.
Chapter 31 The Redemption of Lord Portly Rind, throwing tantrums fit for a mythical beast, now hummed a cheerful tune as he polished his boots. His wife, Lady Rosamond, looked up from her embroidery, a smile warming her face. "You seem unusually chipper this morning, my lord," she remarked, her voice as soft as velvet. "Indeed, my dear," he replied, pausing to give her a quick kiss. "It's rather nice to not be, well, me," he chuckled, his normally imposing figure seeming to shrink with the warmth of his newfound contentment. It had been a long journey. The once powerful Lord Portly Rind, notorious for his domineering nature and cruel punishments, had undergone a transformation. He had rediscovered the joy of simple things, reading stories with his daughter, Eliza, playing chess with his son, Arthur, and simply spending time with his beloved Rosamond. Meanwhile, on the bustling streets of Portly Rind Manor, two unlikely companions, Mr. Pickles and Mr. Trout, were busy with their own brand of good deeds. Gone were the days of sinister plots and malevolent schemes. In their place was a genuine desire to improve the lives of the townsfolk. Mr. Pickles, once a master of deception and trickery, now wielded a broom with an almost manic glee. He swept the cobblestone streets with incredible skill, his once cunning smile now tinged with a wholesome satisfaction. Mr. Trout, formerly the mastermind behind countless evil machinations, had found a new passion in gardening. He nurtured vibrant flowers with a surprisingly gentle touch, his once piercing eyes now reflecting the beauty of nature.
Chapter 32 The Invisible Giants. Mr. Pickles, a portly tabby cat with a penchant for napping in sunbeams, was not known for existential ponderings. But one day, as he lay sprawled across the windowsill, the golden rays of the afternoon sun casting a halo around his head, a thought wormed its way into his mind. A thought so outlandish, so impossible, that it made his whiskers twitch. It started with a stray dust mote, dancing in the air beam. As he watched it, the mote seemed to move with an almost intentional grace, swirling and dipping like a tiny dancer. It was then that the question crept in, who moves it? He knew, of course, that the sun's rays caused the dust to dance. But what if there was something more, something unseen, manipulating the very fabric of his world? The idea sparked a fire in his feline mind, filling him with an uncharacteristic sense of wonder. He pictured immense fingers, bigger than any house, gently guiding the dust mote across his sunbeam. Gigantic beings, their skin shimmering like rainbows, their eyes the size of moons. He saw himself, shrunk down to the size of an ant, a mere speck in their vast, unknowable existence. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room, his mind raced. What did these giants do? Were they kind? Did they know of his existence, this tiny, furry creature who lived in a world of their making? He imagined them gathering in their immense palaces, giggling at the antics of the tiny creatures they controlled, laughing at the absurdity of their existence. But then, as the last sliver of sun dipped below the horizon, Mr. Pickles felt a flicker of unease. His world, cozy and familiar, now felt strangely fragile. What if these giants were not so benevolent? What if they were bored, and decided to play a cruel game with their tiny creations? He curled up on his favorite cushion, the shadows growing longer, the world around him seeming suddenly vast and unknowable. He licked his paws, his purr fading to a quiet tremor. He wasn't sure if he liked the idea of unseen giants anymore. After all, what did they do when they were not controlling his tiny speck of a universe? Did they play games with him, just for their own amusement? He closed his eyes, the question echoing in the quiet of the room. It was a question he knew he could never answer, a question that would linger in the back of his mind, a secret shared between himself and the dust motes dancing in the sunbeams, a silent reminder of the unknown vastness beyond his understanding. The end.